Welcome back to Roll on the Adventure. So we've just done the game Conspiracy Board. We're here talking about it. We're going to continue talking about it a little bit, and also talk about some RPG things that are going around in the local stratosphere. So if you'd like to listen to our introduction.
Oh, roll on the adventure. Roll on the adventure. Roll on the adventure.
This gets worse every time we do it.
It's never good.
Anyway, so
I've just been thinking about the characters that we created in this, and like some of the ones from the other games as well.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about recurring NPCs. Do you guys tend to use them in your home games?
Oh, absolutely. I guess the nature of running an actual play show. For those who don't know, Nathan Blades is the GM of the talent agency Actual Play Sci-Fi / Cyberpunk podcast. Because that is normally run in a system with a continuity. But there are so many cool cyberpunk and cyberpunk adjacent systems out there that I want to try and then also do them on air. And I tend to set them all in the same universe.
Okay.
So both I and my players have the opportunity to work in existing people into the new bits. And that makes improv a little easier because you already have people that could potentially fill certain roles if it's logical for them to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I tend to do lots of different games, then I've used the same pieces of art for different characters, but they do tend to be different people. So unless it's actually multiple iterations of the same game, I've not really recurring NPCs in quite the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of tend to refresh my setting. And
do you tend to run things in the same setting?
I'm kind of the sort of GM that just burns everything down and starts again each time.
Okay.
And that's just like my general approach to writing anything. I'm legit terrible for it. It's like, this wasn't perfect. Let's just wipe the slate clean instead of iterating.
No, Chris's style definitely has some precedence in other pieces of media. Osamu Tezuka, the manga artist who does like Astro Boy, is well known for in each of his series having the same characters in them, although they're almost as if they're actors. So even though it's an entirely illustrated thing, that's the same character that appears in all his works as different names, or sometimes as the same name. They're all disparate universes, but it feels consistent a little more that way when you see familiar faces across his work.
Yeah.
Well, there's quite a lot of anime and manga artists that do very much reuse the same faces.
Same facing is an entirely different problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of them are the same character from alternate timelines. Cough, saber, cough.
Let's not get into the Nasuverse on this podcast.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I must admit, when it comes to my games, I like the idea of not necessarily sharing NPCs across games. Some of my games are similar to yours, Daniel, in that essentially one of my sets of campaigns were set in the same world but at different periods of time. So essentially, like major things the players did would okay, wrong name. But the main things that the players did in those games would actually continue on in other campaigns. So like if someone not like defeated the entire Wizards Guild, for example, that thing set in stone now, that is canon, that is something that can be used in a different campaign with different players. So essentially the players building the world with me, because I'm not particularly good at building worlds myself.
Oh, it's always great when when world building is a collaborative effort. I actually quite like that, because some of the stuff that has recurred in my campaigns and in like the B-sides episodes where it's, same world, different system, are ideas that other people have suggested on air, and I'm like, no, that's part of the world now. That's a great character. They're going to appear anytime, all the time that I can have them in. That's great.
It also means the players are then more involved and invested. So, as you said earlier, rather than I'm going to tell you about my awesome characters, and everyone starts drifting off. Hey, you made this character. They're awesome. Now they're part of the world. And the players are a lot more involved and invested because they actually know things.
Yeah.
To listen to your entire info, GM entire info.
Yeah, the GM info dump is not a thing that I enjoy. But then again, I tend to run a lot more one-shots than I do of campaigns.
I used to be bad for that kind of thing, and I've been teaching myself to... you write down all that info because it's good to have that information consistent in case people ask questions. But once you start explaining like the first line of that, it then becomes very difficult to not explain the rest.
Oh yeah, it's I used to have a bit of a penchant for it, especially like I used to run quite a bit of unknown armies and trying to explain who the players were in the world and what people knew about them. Kind of got a bit out of hand on occasion. I mean, it's the same with Exalted. And even like as soon as you've got non-canon NPCs, you try to explain who the major powers in the area and stuff are, because the characters should know this. It's like, do they really need to know this? Do the players need to know this? Or is it okay just saying the character knows? Ooh,
it's like fine.
I'll explain it if we need it. Ask me.
It's nice when you have players you can trust enough to basically allow them to make stuff up like that and fill in the gaps themselves.
Yeah.
You come to a town with an inn, and one of them goes, "Yeah, the inn's the Green Dragon Inn."
Mm-hmm.
It just makes life so much easier.
Yeah. But my go-to one is like the Three Barrels or the Rusty Badger. I can't remember why it was the Rusty Badger, but there was just a game where we ended up setting like a lot of the game in this bar called the Rusty Badger.
It's a pretty legit name, I must say.
Yeah, I think it was like it's not actually a Rusty Badger. It's like a fox or something. Just no one's actually seen a fox, so everyone thinks it's a Rusty Badger. It's some bizarre thought process. Yeah,
the in jokes that are then baked in. Yeah.
It's like an in joke off an in joke or something bizarre, and I can't even remember the original joke, just the name.
Oh yeah,
it's quite fun when that sort of thing crops up.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you're going to be using any of the names that we've developed in this in other stuff? You know, why make a good name go to waste? I made an entire gang of people with purple surnames. How am I not going to use that in everything I do from now on?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the talent agency show where the Straw Hat Gang turn up.
They have to now. It's mandatory.
I mean, I can see myself using Cassandra Dale and Ivan Lovelace at least as names in like other games.
Yeah,
yeah.
Their legacy will live on.
Hey,
I mean, I'm always worried that it'll be like too many in jokes is gonna wreck it.
Well, it depends on how you deliver that, though. Because if you say like, "Oh, this character is named Ivan Lovelace," and then you just cackle for 3 minutes, that's maybe laying it on a bit too thick. But for the people that are tuning into all your bits of media that have caught this and then see it down the road, then you're like, yeah, I see it.
Like, I'm genuinely tempted to get like a couple of pages written up of names that we've used in the podcast for later reuse.
Legit, absolutely do that.
I mean, I believe we're doing a live show at Hibanicon a couple of weeks after this gets broadcast. So that's going to be really interesting, and it'd be nice to have a printout of names just in case anyone's listened to us.
Yes,
just to surprise them. That's going to be really fun. The thing is, though, we've only got an hour to create a game.
I mean, it just means it's going to be a one-pager. That's right.
I don't know. It's like it takes us 2 hours to get a one-pager. I'm just going to have to whip everyone into a speed designing frenzy.
Yeah, it might be the kind of thing where you prepare a couple of different like resolution mechanics in advance, and then maybe kind of have a bit of over under on which one you like and how you could tweak it, rather than inventing something from scratch. Shortcuts.
Yeah. Chris, if you like were just a general game off the top, like, you know, what were the sort of go-to mechanics that you probably kind of grab?
Probably steal the like Tenma Bancho Zero starting relationship stuff, so all of the players. Essentially, it has a D66 grid you roll on, so the characters have starting initial hooks for each other. Like, you think there's something about them.
Yeah.
Actual mechanics.
So for like actual resolution mechanics?
Probably just some fairly low stats and just roll a D6 or something.
Yeah.
Because that tends to give you a decent random factor. Everyone can generally understand it without having to get into huge amounts of detail or math.
Yeah, so like what, like
D6
2d6 plus stat or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. My go-to one tends to be d6 dice pool, stat plus skill.
Mm-hmm.
That's if I've just got to really do something fast. I'll be like, right, here's the stats that make sense for this game. Here's like make up some skills, throw some numbers at it, and you know, like 5s and 6s are successes. Or I actually find that what works better is even numbers of successes, because that way you don't really have to worry about the size of the dice unless someone's an idiot and brings d5s.
And that would be a weird geometric nightmare.
Oh yeah, those and some of the D3s are pretty bad. I mean, I think can't remember who it is. There's someone that does a D7, and just
Pourquoi?
Yeah, that is a. I think it's got like weirdly curved sides.
Great.
I don't own one. I possibly might get one at some point, but not soon.
I've seen the ones that just like pencils with the numbers around the edge.
I mean, I have some D8s that are like that, but I use them as like inspiration dice in D&D rather than rolling them.
Yeah.
I recently came across a YouTube video that was kind of talking about the concept of fair dice, being that there's a limited number of dice shapes that have both even space on their faces and are rotationally symmetrical.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can make other dice shapes that work. They just aren't as symmetrically even. And then it's like, are they still fair? Who knows? But to be honest, if you're kind of worrying about like hardcore cheating in your tabletop RPG, something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. I feel it's one of those weird things that game science dice exist.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it.
Although now I want to design an RPG where the intent is to cheat as much as you can without getting caught. Just
oh, that would end so badly.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you're playing it in a way where there's clearly no stakes. The entire premise of the thing is just to kind of like, you know, not get too salty if you manage to cheat and get caught.
So kind of like you know, cheat the card game. You know, it's you play all your hands face down and that kind of thing.
And then it's still kind of like, I think you're cheating, and then you get caught, and you're like, yeah, you got me, but there's no Jones about that. There's definitely people that I could not play that with. Like there would be too much salt. I should be cutting down on the salt in my diet from other people.
No, that could be an interesting game dynamic. sort of PvP kind of thing.
Yeah,
it can actually work really well for a PvP game.
Yeah,
I mean, more than a collaborative one.
You can possibly do a GM-less PvP where the people there will be an actual winner, and somebody's going to call you out on your shenanigans sooner.
Talking of calling bullshit, has anyone played Big Motherfucking Crab Truckers?
I have not. That sounds delightful. Give me that name one more time.
I can't, because we've used our entire swearing budget for the episode.
So it was big MFing truckers?
Crab truckers.
Okay.
You are giant
They
crabs
track
that
crabs or
drive
they
trucks.
are crabs?
They're giant crabs that drive large American articulated lorries for the glory of the crab goddess.
I'm just trying to imagine like crab claws in the steering wheel.
Who wrote this nonsense? I must know.
4chan, I think.
Oh, well. Well, that answers that
Yeah.
question. And yeah, they did.
I mean, there's been some like genuinely really interesting stuff come out of TGE.
I mean, yeah, I also used to frequent that board back in the dark times of my life. And there was content. There actually was useful content there. I would still burn it all down having given the chance, but...
Yeah, I'm kind of leaving on there.
But yeah, it was. It's really good because the only time you have to roll dice is if someone calls bullshit on your action.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that is too
much.
absurd.
Yeah. And then so there's like this sort of, it gives it this really nice feel where you're kind of supporting each other, but you're kind of like it's kind of like, you know, guys at the bar kind of egging each other on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, telling tall tales kind of feel to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Though
Yeah.
a friend of mine used it to do like a Portal game, and so a player pushed a button to get something started, and the thing just worked.
And everyone's
So I
like,
called
nah.
it. No, it was just me, and everyone. The rest of the all the rest of the table just looked at me like, "How you're calling that?" And I'm like, "There's no way that's not got a track behind it." I was like, "Oops, I kind of misjudged the tone of the game a bit there." For the second time, because that was the one where the GM said, "Yeah, just make whatever. It can be really weird as long as it's something like, you know, that could vaguely fit in like a sort of, you know, near future sci-fi thing."
And you just rubbed your hands with glee. And
yeah, because the GM like should have known better than to say that to me.
It's the GM's fault. Victim blaming.
I mean, he was the guy who played Pizza Wizards with me.
That's not one I know either.
No one knows it. We were drunk after another game and then went to the bar, and I just told them that was what we were playing and just made the rules up as we played.
Oh, like Mornington Crescent kind of thing.
It was kind of that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, so he knew what I was like, and the rest of the players played quite sensible. You know, let's do like same things and get out of this in one piece characters. And I played a manatee, who is a famous neurologist who, to test their theory, had transferred their mind into the body of a manatee.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And I spent the entire session talking like this.
This game sounds better and better, and a thing I absolutely would want to be part of.
Oh man, it was just the fact that the other players like didn't know what really the group, like the guy, they didn't know the GM particularly well, and I think they played with me, but when I was doing something serious. So
it sure as hell got to know you, though, huh?
Yeah, it kind of caught them a bit off guard, I think.
Glory.
In all my aquatic glory. But yeah, it's a really nice like mini game with a sort of, you know, calling it element. Although I think if you did a PvP one, yeah, totally like play your hand of cards face down, you know, tell people what you've got. If they believe you, let it happen, you know. I think that could be really, really fun. Yeah. Amy, your go-to's Fate then?
Yeah, I admit I don't have a lot of experience with DMing. I'm still fairly new to the entire thing, despite the fact of having been a player for quite a while.
Yeah.
I do, however, think one of my favorite resolution mechanics, I'm quite a fan of the explosion mechanics.
Yeah.
So some of my friends, we play Battle Century, which is a mecha game.
Oh, cool.
And the way we do it, we do almost like Gurren Lagann in terms of scale and absolute insanity.
Nice.
So our method is that we have the D10. You roll the D10 and then add your skill. But if the D10 lands on a 10, you have that 10 and it explodes and you can roll again. So we have had occasions where people have gotten 3 D10s in a row and have gotten all 10s, and it's just like, this is insane.
Well, what are you doing?
So, but I do love that sort of. It can become incredibly insane in those sort of games. So I must admit that's probably my favorite resolution mechanic.
So yeah, just like it's a totals normally, isn't it, or successes?
Yeah, totals. Yeah.
Nathan, what's your if you general game? Someone has challenged you to run something, and you're just gonna have to pick a starting point. What are you gonna go for?
Even though I've not really played many games that use it as a system, I really want to start playing more games that use cards as a resolution mechanic, because my forays into the world of tabletop gaming has been through like trading card games and stuff, and I really enjoy the kind of tactile feel of using cards as opposed to using dice for things. And there's a lot of pretty interesting ones. There is an indie one called Upwind, which is like a Sky Pirates RPG. If you've played Skies of Arcadia, you're basically there. And that gives you a hand of cards that you have to use up before you get new ones. And it's a narrative game in a way where you're like, I want this thing to happen, and you wager a number of cards based on how complicated the action is. So if it's all like, I swat an arrow out of the air with my cutlass, that might just be a 1-card play. But if it's like, I want a meteor to fall out of the sky and crash into another ship, that's like a 3-card play. So you'd have to play 3 cards from your hand as the bet. The GM also does that, and it's then discussed on if the player wins, then the thing that they want happens. But if they don't win, something of equal like negative value has to happen instead.
So like a 3-card negative, effectively.
Yeah. So if your success state is a meteor falling out of the sky and destroying the thing aggressing you, you wonder what the fail state of that might be instead. And I found that really quite elegant as a system, because it requires no stats. The game is as risky as you, a player, want it to be, and there is a level of there's always something as a GM where, fortunately, if you're playing with people that are on the same wavelength of you, it doesn't happen very often. But what happens when somebody suggests something that you have to be like, nah, that's not a thing. Or like, we can do that, but there's going to be some heavy caveats if we go into that kind of road of that being a thing. That's built into the mechanics, because then as a GM, you can say, that is a thing I'm willing to add to the story, but it's going to cost you a lot of cards in your hand to do that. And, if you have bad cards in your hand, you have to use them at some point, so you intentionally have to fail things.
And occasionally if you fail small things, then you're using your cards less fast. Which I think is quite a nice pacing mechanic. Yeah, that sounds really fun.
I'm fascinated with that. And the thing that I don't know, there is in a Renaissance age of played by the Apocalypse hacks, which are all very well made and in themselves very elegant systems. I am slightly tired of rolling 2d6.
I think some of them do kind of miss the point of it, but that's just me.
There are definitely ones that are good at what they do. I love City of Mist as a game, but also don't necessarily have to roll a d6 all the time. It can be other things with numbers on them.
They all tend to be very focused, and if you can find one that does what you want it to, it tends to be very good at that.
And literally nothing else, which is fine.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of them, though, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it can just be, because I'm trying to come back from more narrative type games to do more generic things like D&D. So suddenly it's very weird having to deal with generic systems that deal with everything. Whoa, this is weird. I don't have niche sub-skills for these instances and nothing else.
Which is nice, to have the games reflect, to have the mechanics reflect the genre is something that I look for in an RPG, I feel.
Yeah. It's just a very different headspace running, like trying to set up NPCs for D&D. And fundamentally, it comes down to how good at murdering things are they, because that's basically the core stat in D&D.
Yep.
I mean, you're not wrong by a long stretch. I mean, I'd argue that D&D is actually quite on the focused end of gaming compared to, say, like Shadowrun, for instance. It's quite focused on what it does on like setting and like its sort of narrative conceits. But mechanically, there's a lot of ways to approach things.
Yeah, it does give it gives a lot of choice. Some may say too much choice, but it does. That is the thing that I guess people flock to it in its attitudes to different types of problem solving. The problem solving all kind of requires rolling a lot of dice in its own, resolution mechanic foibles. Yeah. But that's fine.
Yeah, I think that the difference is that D&D's focus is on using one approach to solve problems. It's rules focus, whereas Shadowrun's is more about using a variety of approaches to solve one particular kind of problem. I think that's kind of the difference. They're both focused, but in a different way.
Yeah, no, I get you.
And as games with big sets of rules go, I do prefer the Shadowrun end. That is like something that's just really occurred to me, that like how the focus changes. I mean, the conspiracy board game that we just did was like, a specific type of problem. And as soon as we tried to go out of that, it needed tweaking. And we didn't even go far. We went from spy to detective, and we were pushing it there as rules as written went.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose not quite as written, but as rules as
suggested.
Yeah, as imagined. We were kind of pushing it there, and that's not a very big jump at all. Whereas I've got the Cortex Prime Kickstarter stuff coming whenever that actually ships.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's a very generic sort of thing. It's generic on the sort of scale that Fate's generic.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be doing something relatively heroic. Your characters matter in the world. But apart from that, it seems pretty vague. And it's for doing everything from like Smallville to the Avengers.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's built to be reskinned to almost everything.
Yeah, it's like the original system. The reason it's called Cortex is because it was used for the Firefly role-playing game.
Ah, okay.
The original version of it was used for that, and then they did Cortex Plus, which they used for a bunch of things. And then I don't know quite what happened. They lost the Marvel license, and things went a bit weird. But there's a bunch of different settings for the game, narrative settings. So you can play like the story version, where you get your bonus dice from a relationship graph. And then there's the superhero version where you get bonus dice from like being with a buddy or on your own or in a team. And like little things like that.
Okay.
And quite what the GM's pool of dice means varies a bit. So it's the same mechanic. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how that actually works, because I've enjoyed Cortex Plus games, and if they get the reskinning to be pretty painless, I'm going to be quite happy to probably use it as like a go-to system.
Okay, yeah. It's nice to find your new normal in terms of what to run.
Yeah.
I kind of just fell into Shadowrun Anarchy being my primary system
Yeah.
And it's fine. It does what I need it to, and it's easy enough to learn. So I guess that's pretty good. But sometimes it's like, could I have made my kind of core gaming system like cooler, more hipster than that? Is that doable, Nathan? Could you pick a more obscure game to know better?
I mean, my go-to response most of the time is write something new. So I think that's probably even more hipster.
I mean, you know, I do definitely, especially as of late, write new things. But
yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of become my default response, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, it's nice to, in the same way that anybody who's a big fan of video games has considered making one at some point. It's a considerably lower barrier to entry to be a fan of tabletop RPGs and be like, I'll have a crack at making one. It'll be bad, but I'll try.
I mean, the barrier for video games has come down a lot, which is really cool.
Oh yes, no, it's not quite ZX Spectrum low, but it's definitely way more accessible than it used to be, and I love that. You know, making visual novels is not a thing I figured I'd be able to do like 10 years ago, but now it's all like, oh gosh, yeah, this is surprisingly achievable. Speaking of systems that might become my core and Kickstarters, I recently backed the most recent City of Mist Kickstarter, because I've had two. One to release their original game, which is good, but a tome large enough where you could easily kill a man with it.
Is it that big?
It's like I went to UK Games Expo earlier this year and saw a physical copy of the book, and it's too big.
How big's too big?
Yeah, it's just it was I go Google image search it. The thing's chufty. I have a PDF of it when I played it. And even though it's like well bookmarked and everything, I still had to give my players the actual pages that they needed to look at because they got lost.
There's so much in there.
And a lot of it is like lore and also really, really good explanations of how to write mysteries for tabletop RPGs. So it's like useful content. It's not chaff, but when it's just trying to get the game up and running, you don't need lore. So recently they've done a new Kickstarter where they're like, okay, we realize that this book is too large. This is too large of a hardback. So what we're going to do is split it into 2 hardbacks. And I'm like, you sort of fixed the problem. If I was to back that at a physical level, I would now have to carry 2 heavy books to a location instead of 1. So I'm going to keep my PDF, but they added in a whole bunch of new kind of like a bestiary, if you could call it that, kind of describing how it handles threats is a really interesting thing. So they've written a whole bunch of pre-made ones so you can use them. Although I have to admit, you know that a lot of Kickstarters now have like a lot of shiny bonus rewards.
Yeah.
The shiny bonus rewards for City of Mist was physical copies of the playbooks alone, like dry erasable ones and dry erasable character sheets.
Nice.
That's kind of cool.
And that is kind of literally the thing that I need, not actually any new books or any new PDFs or anything. And you're like, I can't buy this on your own, you say. I have to back the Kickstarter to get these, you say. Well, I am definitely going to be spending more on add-ons than I am of actual product, but this is fine.
Yeah. That's a really cool thing. I think, like, if I was going to run Fellowship at cons more, which is awkward because it's like a 4-hour game at least, I'd really want some white clean character sheets, because trying to remember which ones to print and you know get like topping them up after a game can be really awkward.
That's what I've tried to do when I do public ones. You saw me play Shadowrun at AmaCon. I printed off some character sheets that were in the book and laminated those, which work okay with dry erase markers. And it serves the purpose, although it's not perfect. If it was actually whiteboard clean material, which is not necessarily cheap, mind you. There was I actually had to pay a reasonable amount for these dry erase character sheets, but it's worth, because I want to get into the game more and support them, but not by encouraging them to make way too large hardback books. Please stop doing that, guys. I don't know. Are you the kind of person that kind of collects RPG books?
Not in my case.
I'm very much a fan of physical media, in that if I buy something, I tend to try and get the physical book rather than just PDF. But I tend not to buy actually all that many RPGs because I only get to play once a week.
And you don't want to make a backlog of it.
Yeah, well, I've got some that I've had for 15 odd years at this point. They're quite good books that I'm just never going to play. I try to avoid stacking up too many.
No, I hear that.
See, my problem is that I got the Exalted 3rd edition, like, special edition one.
That is a big book.
Ooh.
And it's really pretty.
Yeah, your centerpiece book.
Have you actually got the super shiny special edition?
I didn't get the one with the metal covers. I got the one down from there.
It wasn't metal, it was actual gold.
It was gold leafed. Oh my god, that's so unnecessary.
I've got the one with the white and gold leaf cover, but I've not got the one with the like weird metal plate things.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it went that fancy. That's incredible.
They went ridiculous. But I got the slightly less ridiculous one, but it's still very nice.
But you can't take that out of your house, right?
I bought a second copy of the book, so players don't get to touch it.
Yeah. No, that's. I guess that's kind of what is my bugbear about hardbacks, in that they're really pretty, and the artwork in City of Mist is actually genuinely really, really good. But I wouldn't be able to take it anywhere. Like when I was starting to do the talent agency podcast, I was taking my laptop and my Yeti Blue mic with me to location, along with my Shadowrun Anarchy hardback. Where I went to London to do that and carried it around in the backpack all day, I damaged my spine. It was too heavy to carry all that stuff. I genuinely had to lie on the floor for a week. So since then, I've been like, if this game isn't in paperback, I am not taking it outside of my home. It needs to be easy to carry. I am a weak man.
Yeah. No, the problem with the Exalted Kickstarters is that then they did the Dragon Blooded Splat book, which is going to be a similar size, and they also did a nice edition that fits with the one that I've got for the core book.
And now you have to get them to match, right?
So I've got that to match. And I'm pretty certain that when they do the Luna's Kickstarter, I'm going to be getting that one as well.
It sounds like you just got played, bro.
I mean, I have I think the only thing that I'm missing that they printed for second edition is like one adventure. I've got like a almost complete set of second edition Exalted.
Was that the demo adventure or a different one?
No, the one the Under the Rose that they did for Return of the Scarlet Empress.
Oh, right near the end.
Yeah. And because the guy in the shop wouldn't give it to me because he didn't have many copies and he wanted to save them for new players, not people that were going in and spending a lot of money.
Were there new players of Exalted at that point?
I mean, it was the end of the edition.
Yeah, literally right at the very end.
But Pete was a very special man. He's the guy who inspired the librarian from Discworld.
Okay.
Like literally was. Like new Terry Pratchett and stuff.
Oh, okay, well.
Oh, cool.
You knew he was that prolific.
I mean, Lancaster's not a huge city.
Fair enough.
It's a few of my friends like up there knew Granny Weatherwax, well, the inspiration for and various other characters.
Oh man,
which was very strange.
Yeah, no, that's wild.
It's like you a book had come out and he talked about it. I was like, oh yeah, I know that guy. Okay.
Contemporary fiction, nice.
But yeah, it was that was a bit strange. Yeah, I've not got anything coming up Kickstarter wise. There's I've completely forgotten the name. There's a microbrew is I'm gonna back, which is like a quite tactical little board game that fits in like a mint tin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Saw it at Dragon Meet last year. Saw the demo copy that they brought with them, the prototype. and looked really cool. So I'm probably gonna back that.
Nice. I don't think I have any Kickstarters that I'm about to back. I recently backed at the start of last month Domina Magica. It's a magical girls RPG.
Oh, I think I've heard of that actually.
All about that life. One Shot Podcasts has a 2-episode run of it, and they do a solid job at kind of selling it, really. So
Yeah.
if you want to, that's also one of the things where if you want it physical, you have to get it in hardback, and like, fine, it also looks like a grimoire, and I'm also all about that. As well.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think the physical version comes with a PDF, so I can stick that on my dedicated PDF tabletop RPG tablet and still be able to play it.
I don't think it's going to be a massive actual hardback, though, is it? From the rules, they've described it should be a fairly small hardback book.
Yeah, no. If it turns out to be a hardback but like A5, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's what I don't mind.
It's the ones that are in like A4 plus, or it's like, oh, did you need to? Did you really need to do that? But if it's like a tiny, small A5, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If you ever see like the physical print copy of Chubos or something, that's kind of ridiculous for sheer size.
I have a physical copy of that.
Yes, that's why the only place I've seen it. It's about 1.5 inches thick.
It's I think ridiculous. It's more like 2.
Yeah.
It's as big as my Exalted 3rd edition one.
Oh gosh, unnecessary. But hey,
it
apparently Chubos is a pretty cool game.
I've still not actually got to play it.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the slice of life. It's a slice of lifestyle thing where it's just chill cooperative improv times, which not necessarily personally my jam. I like to have a decent streak of action in what I play.
The thing is, that's just the sort of pastoral thing is like default mode, and then it has like the same system but with some like changes to it. Then like the way it works is you gain XP by doing XP actions, and XP actions vary by genre.
Okay. Yeah.
So to gain XP in a pastoral game, you have to be nice and chat to people. In a heroic fantasy game, you get just try to remember which way round things are. In heroic fantasy, you get XP actions for basically going after big monsters and like putting yourself in danger, coming up with awesome plans, and you also get points for oh crap, this is terrifying, and cheesing it.
You get rewarded for playing to genre. That makes sense.
And that's how it does the genre emulation.
Okay.
And I am not entirely certain quite how well it works because I've never actually got to play it. I've got a load of stuff prepped.
Actually, I think by the time this episode airs, it would still be. I think it's currently on sale on Bundle of Holding, along with Nobilis, second ed, not third. So if people want to go and try out Chubos, now is a good time. It is available for inexpensive. Yeah,
I want a copy of third edition Nobilis, but it's very expensive.
Oh, there's like a physical copy.
Yeah, I rather do want a physical copy.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay that much for it.
Understandable. Some people have to, like eat food and pay rent. I cannot survive on dice alone. They are very low nutrition.
Yeah, and it's not quite as nice. It's not as nice a book as Second by a long stretch. Which is unfortunate. The reason it's rare is because they didn't print many, not because it's really. Whereas Second was expensive because it's just a super nice thing, so everyone snapped it up.
Sure.
It's like a big. You were saying about larger than A4 book. The Nobilis second edition one is a great big square thing.
So it's just not even designed to fit on a bookshelf. Even it's just
designed as a coffee table book.
Yeah.
It's like really, really pretty. It's all done in like white, silver, and gold. There's like lots of like each page has like the rules, and then it has like a huge margin, and like all the margins have got like little stories and stuff like that in them, so you can just flick through the book and find out some cool stuff, like like maybe a poem or maybe like a little fragment of a story, that kind of thing.
Oh wow, okay.
And some like rather nice artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad I've got it. And if I had a coffee table that could be out all the time, it would totally live on there. Instead, I've got it on a stand in the bookcase.
Okay. Yeah.
Like facing people as they come into the room.
So you can see it.
You do, and it looks amazing.
It's there next to my Exalted one.
Nice.
But I don't prop the good Exalted one up because it's too thick for the stand.
I see. Oh gosh. I mean, I'm generally an advocate of tabletop RPGs being as cheap as they possibly can to get more people to play other things. But I do appreciate having a version that is super nice because it's a thing you care about a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate if I need to take my Nibilis stuff anywhere for any reason.
Yeah, you just have to make sure that there is the pocket version.
The PDF is good for that. Yeah. I'm trying to remember if the PDF has actual bookmarks. The PDF of Third has terrible bookmarking.
Uh-huh.
It's a bit disappointing, especially considering it's such a large thing.
Third's no way near as big, I don't think, as Second or Tubos. I've not actually seen a physical copy of Third, so I couldn't tell you for definite. I don't think it's as big, though. So, what have people got coming up? Any projects or anything like that people are working on?
Projects? Ooh. Actually, yes. This is a really good opportunity to plug a cool indie thing. Haha. A friend of mine, Will Ool, or Shaleblade on Twitter and Discord, is custom making a tabletop RPG based around the Mega Man Battle Network video games.
Okay. Cool.
Which, so Mega Man, most people are familiar with. He is a robot boy. He fights other robots and steals their powers. There was a Game Boy Advance series where instead of him being a robot, he is the AI best friend of a 10-year-old. So it kind of falls into the kind of like shonen anime kind of genre, set in a kind of like utopian cyberpunk setting. And then, you fight net crime with your online friend. And it was actually the series of video games that got me to care about cyberpunk as a kid. So
cool.
it meant a lot to me.
Okay.
And so I kind of came across, I think through Reddit, actually, he kind of posted that he was working on this thing. And I've been doing a number of behind the scenes like beta tests of the system, and he's been putting up together an alpha PDF, very shiny, like professionally done in
Nice.
in InDesign. And at time of recording, I believe it comes out late next week. So that will be generally available on the internet. I think I'm not quite sure where he intends to publish it. At minimum, if you go to the Mega Man Battle Network subreddit, it will definitely be there. I don't know otherwise as kind of distribution things. Bug me on Twitter. If you bug me at Phantom Arts Ent, I will definitely link you a copy of it. And it's really neat. I think it does. It's interesting to have a game that's based on an existing video game, no less. It's not like say there's like a fan-made JoJo's Bizarre Adventure tabletop RPG, and there's plenty of like mechanics in that you can condense down to dice rolls, and it works quite well. But it's a manga; it doesn't have game mechanics necessarily. But Mega Man Battle Network is a video game, so it has mechanics inherent that if you're familiar with, you would want to see reflected in the tabletop space. But not all of that converts one-to-one. So I think he's done a really good job at making it both fun for anybody to play who likes kind of shonen anime or kind of like utopian cyberpunk as like a setting, like cyberpop maybe, but also is familiar with the video game and want to see those kind of bits and pieces reflected. I'm looking forward to recording a session of it where they beat up my original character from 2009.
Oh, nice.
because I was deep into that fandom and made an OC. Back then, you called them personal characters, apparently. So yeah, he's going to be the boss of this one shot, and I'm looking forward to people beating up my childhood.
That's amazing. Amy?
Not really. I'm continuing on a sort of mini. It started as a couple of one shots I did, which is the reason I got introduced to Fate Accelerated, because my society at my university wanted people to do one shots, and I didn't know any systems. So I was like, okay, what's a simple system I can use? Fate Accelerated. Okay, use that. And I did the superhero one shot, which is very heavily based on the MCU and that sort of action heavy Marvel movies, that sort of thing. It was basically Die Hard, but with superheroes. And I played it with some friends I have online, and they loved it, and they wanted to continue playing it. So since then, I've been sort of doing little episodes in that, and it originally was meant to be a bunch of one shots stitched together, but eventually it's turned into, okay, we need like 2 episodes to deal with this plot line. And it's progressing fairly smoothly. Like in the last couple of days, I did my first one-on-one session, which I've never done before, and it went fairly well. So it's evolving fairly well for what it would be my second campaign.
Nice.
Oh wow, Chris.
I'm going to be doing NaNoWriMo again. So for anyone that doesn't know, National Novel Writing Month, or try to write a 50,000 word novel in October.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Which normally involves swearing profusely, especially towards the end. So yeah, that'll be taking most of my spare time for next month or so.
That's super brave, man. I tried to do that a handful of times while I was in uni, and varying levels of failure. So that people continue to keep taking cracks at that and probably get better every time they try, I think is really neat. So yeah,
I actually managed it last year for the first year after trying it for like the last 7 or something.
Oh, congratulations, dude. That's awesome.
It will just sit on my hard drive, but at least it'll be something I've done.
And
there's HibanaCon as well.
Yeah. Yep. And Roll on the Adventure Live.
Yes. Okay. That'll be interesting.
It'll be fun. I'm sure it'll be fun. I will support you from a distance.
I don't know if I'm helping with that at all.
Probably.
You could just storm the stage midway through the show. I'm sure there'll be
the random special guest just like runs in. Left.
You can just hit the fire alarm if it's going horribly wrong.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working on a sort of living world type thing that I'm going to be running at BanzaiCon, which is going to be, by the time this goes out, last weekend. And that's shaping up really interestingly. The theme of the convention is villains. So what we're doing is we have like a fantasy version of Oslo, and it's under threat by 4 different villains. And the idea is we're going to do a whole bunch of games, probably mostly 5e, but hopefully I'll be able to wangle some other games in there just to mix it up and make it more hipster. But each game that we do is going to be advancing one of the villains' plots, changing what's on the map, and sort of giving advancing the narrative. So the idea is at the end we'll know which of the villains' plans comes together and who takes the city. So we're going to start off by presenting the current situation at the opening ceremony. We're going to play for a couple of days, and then we're going to do the sort of epilogue fiction in the closing ceremony.
Okay. That sounds quite involving.
Yeah, it's hopefully going to get a load of people that wouldn't necessarily go to a game.
Fresh blood. Nice.
Yeah. And there's a DM's panel as well, which I'm doing the sort of host bit for. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Got Moley on it, so it's going to be interesting.
Is Mowgli particularly notorious for not cooperating, or
I've got to stop him just going off on a rant, I think. And if you've listened to this show before, then that's not the easiest thing in the world.
I mean, yeah, okay. Actually, now that you bring that up, it's like, yeah. No, that tracks. But don't be shady to your co-hosts on air, though.
I am totally not. I totally would say this to his face.
Fair enough, then.
Nah, I'm sure it's going to be fine. Because if I do give him any stick, he's going to give it back when we do Roll the Adventure Live. So, Cool. So I think we've just got time for a little bit of what we'd like to see in the next episode. So the next arc, we're going to be creating another game, and we've had some really nice things in the last game for us. Like the 3 GMs 1 player thing, like really came together, and I'm super proud of how well everybody did, making that happen. Like that came out of this last time.
Okay.
As did mission-based gameplay and spy fiction. So we're after sort of plot elements, genre things that you'd like to see Roll on the Adventure tackle next.
Okay. I would like fashion to be a game mechanic.
Fashion
No.
as a mechanic.
Because that is something that has been ticking in my brain for literally forever. Even back in the day when it's all like, I'm going to make a video game. And yeah, it's never kind of like manifested as a thing, but I want it to exist. So you guys can do it for me.
I did write a small Final Fantasy X-2 game.
Dress fair system owns, man. Return that for new games. It's great. But yeah, the idea of like apply purple lipstick to do poison damage is just the coolest concept to me ever, and needs to exist.
I think the interesting thing is you can go kind of both ways with that. You can go like, is the fashion the thing that drives the mechanics, or is it a consequence of the mechanics? I think doing like, there's ways you can look at that both kind of interact with the fiction differently.
Yeah.
I think that could be really cool to tackle. Chris, any ideas?
Possibly we could try something a little, because we've done very narrative-y type things for the last few. Possibly something a little bit more trad.
Yeah, so a bit more.
Maybe actually use a dice.
Actually use dice. We did use dice for the first game, just not much.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put down on my list actually use dice.
All right.
I think though that's a nice thing, because if we're looking at dice mechanics, that's likely to give us stuff that we could take and use elsewhere. Obviously some of the narrative conceit we could apply, like the sort of, as we talked about in the first part of this episode, the sort of multi-GM player choose thing, kind of mapping that to other games. But I think, definitely having some interesting dice mechanics could give us stuff that we can use to, say, permute your D&D game or a Shadowrun game or something like that. That could be really cool.
Dope.
So we'll have to work out some logistics for rolling everything on air, but I'm sure we can manage.
There are Discord dice roller apps, or you could just believe in each other.
I mean, that's what we did for the first one. We just got Mowgli to roll and just went with what he said.
Believe in the heart of the dice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love unironically talking about the heart of the cards. It makes people so angry.
I kind of like tarot decks in that way.
And how? Absolutely.
Yeah, like just it's so much fun to play stuff.
Is that what you're adding to the pile? Because if this is a fashion game with tarot cards, I immediately want to play this thing.
I think that's a really nice gel. So I think at least some sort of interpreting pictures thing.
Feasibly playable with a deck of Dixit cards kind of deal.
So yeah, either like interpret. So you can something about interpreting, like, you know, a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I think would be really nice. How well that will work on a podcast, I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe we'll have to publish our slide deck or something.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to have additional listener notes.
Like, yeah, show notes.
Show notes. There we go. I'm tired.
Yeah, like I think interpreting stuff would be really cool. It's something that was a lot of fun when we did it for Primordia. Well, at least I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though that was more how you interpret a word, a plot element, whereas having something less concrete would be really interesting. I mean, is there any other sort of like collaborative things that we could do?
I don't think Amy suggested a thing to add to the pile.
I think that's partially because I'm not really sure. Like, I'm always fairly passive when it comes to new elements in games. I'm happy to see what people like to do rather than thinking of something for myself. I like the idea of tarot. Tarot is something I'm definitely always interested in, seeing being used in games.
We're very much missing a genre.
What's your current genre, Jam, Amy? What you're Netflix into?
I guess I do quite like one of my favorite subgenres is Phantom Thieves. I like thief stories. I like stories like Lupin. I've always loved Gentleman Thieves. So possibly a story about having to rob somewhere, like being the criminal.
Fashion heist game. Yeah.
Or that sort of thing. Like, I love cops and robbers.
Yeah, I put Gentleman Thieves down.
You do realize that, like, Gentleman Thieves with a theme of tarot cards and everybody's very fashionable is just Persona 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go make Persona 5 the RPG, I will also play that. So,
Man, I now I'm just trying to think how to not make it Persona 5.
That's fair. That is your design challenge for next time.
No one is allowed to be a Japanese teenager.
I could totally see that. But I'm trying. I don't want to do a Persona 5 game.
Then yeah, just like it doesn't have to be Phantom Thieves. It can be just criminals in general. Like, I love crime fiction.
Mm-hmm.
You could always set it in a historical period or something.
Ocean's 11 rather than, because everybody in that is dressed immaculately too. So there's systems, there's ways to make that work.
Yeah, like I think what would be quite interesting is to experiment with like tone a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So like trying to go for, like, we've tried to do genre emulation, and we've done sort of like periods, like fantasy, sort of like times and things like that. We've tried to emulate like certain types of story a bit, like with the Escape game.
So you want to hit an emotion this time?
But I think trying to hit an emotion would be really interesting. Like, do we want to sort of really try make a super fast-paced plot line? Really make that a real sort of mile a minute, sort of everything's racing at once kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be something we want to like try do? Do we want to try do a bit more of a relaxed thing? It's all about the quiet moments, not the action.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that could be really interesting, like a mood.
Yeah. Games to make you feel. Nice.
So what's the mood we're trying to create?
Oh, you want to narrow that down now? I would have figured that would be something you'd narrow down in the actual episode itself.
Actually, yeah, let's whack it to gaming to a mood.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's come up in quite a few places. Like, even like the old World of Darkness games had like a mood that they put on in the beginning of each splat book, and then no one ever really thought about after that. Like, because it's like dice. They're like things like Geist had like a theme and a mood, and like the theme was, I think, like something to do with the underworld, and you know, like the sort of mood was like it's like a joy in being. Can't remember how it was. It was like some sort of like dark joy or something like that. Like you're glad to have a chance to like do what you're doing, kind of thing. I can't remember exactly how it articulated it, but it's like, you know, the whole Run for the Dead thing that it was doing was the mood, and like I say, it came through in some of the mechanics descriptions. But say vampires didn't really at all. I didn't feel that vampires' mood came forward. I don't think that mages did as well. I can't remember exactly what mages was. I think the theme was being clandestine, and like the mood was kind of like, you know, so I don't know, it's sort of like a power trippy type thing. I can't remember off the top of my head because it never really sank in. So gaming to a mood is something that I think could be really cool.
Dope.
Or even if you like set moods for scenes, that'd be immense. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying to make something along those lines.
No, that all sounds really exciting.
Yeah,
we have already crafted something neat, I think.
Cool. Well, that's all I've got time for, I think. Does anyone want to quickly plug anything?
Hell yeah, I can be a corporate shill on the internet. So, this has been Nathan Blades, a fellow member of Bunkerzilla Radio. You can listen to my show, Passion Project, usually airing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, although I believe we're having a bit of a schedule change. So you'll find that out at bunkerzilla.co.uk, also on my Twitter at PhantomArtsEnt, E-N-T.
Cool.
I'm just going to say thank you for letting me guest on the show, and hopefully I can come back sometime if you'd like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's great having you.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, not really got anything to shill at the moment, but hopefully everyone listening has actually enjoyed it and we've not been completely incoherent.
I mean, there's been some rambling, but I don't think it was incoherent rambling.
Yeah.
And before we start rambling again, goodbye!
Bye!